The plot thickens. I love God. He's always good at showing you how the plot thickens. So, some interesting stuff around Mary Magdalene. Yes, she came from a noble family, which makes sense. See, for her to just be traveling with Jesus at such a young age with money was really, no, you can't do that unless you were a older widow, unless you were married and your husband was with you, yet, because the men suppressed the women. But yet she traveled independently. She was independent with money, all of it. But then her father, Cyrus, not the same King Cyrus, this was a different Cyrus. She lived in like a noble fisherman area. And so her family owned Magdala, the city of Magdala, Bethany, and is it Lazarus? What is the other one? Martha. And so when her father died, see, that's what I always understood, is that she received this inheritance because her father died. Okay, that she was never married. I believe she went on to marry Apostle John. Do I have evidence for that? No, not at all. I just think she did, and I think they probably had kids. And I think that's why the church has wanted to so desperately cover everything up with her, even to the point where Europe will write, bullshit stories of, they desperately have always been trying to cover her. And not just, obviously because they want their kingdom. That's what they don't come out and tell you, is they want their kingdom. They don't want God's kingdom. That's ultimately the reason why. Just understand that. That's the only reason you do it. You can say, oh, they just were prejudiced against women. No, they don't want women because they know women will have greater access to the Holy Spirit. It's just the truth. The men get over it. If you want to learn, you likely should learn from a woman. Seriously, but not some crazy leftist woman that I see in these churches. No, you don't even need the church anymore. But if you want to go to the church because it's tradition, okay, but it's... Jesus said, to the Samaritan woman, that you would worship his Father anywhere. When he's in here, why would you go to a leader of the church? But I don't want to go down that road. Here is how great God is, okay? God just always, wows me. Wows me like nobody can wow me. She was such the example of the helper. Yeah, you know how the Kirk family there in Turning Point loves to run around and say, well, you're the wife, you're the helpmate, you're just there to serve your husband. No, Mary Magdalene was the example of what the helper really was. She had to have helped Apostle John be able to have visions. See, what they do have of her gospel, the men, some of the men, Peter and James, Levi, only those two, go after her because they're like, why would Jesus give you visions? See, after Jesus ascended, she had a vision with him. And I said in my last video that she said in the vision, she said, how am I seeing and talking to you? Is it through the spirit or the soul? And he said, the mind. And I said that ties with the other apostles' gospels, especially John, Apostle John, because John talks about needing the heart and mind transformed. Paul talks about that too. Unless that is transformed, which takes total surrender to God, then you wouldn't be able to have that interaction and dialogue with Jesus. Okay, you'll see a lot of fake people do it, but they're fake. So she literally was an example of why God said, I'm going to give you a helper. Because because God knew what was going to happen. You're going to need a helper if you ever want to know me. But see, there's a lot of men in this world from many different religions that will not tolerate that. And that will damn them all. It will. That is why I've said God will come so hard against them. That's what I think is going to end. See, God has to force his kingdom because he knows they will never submit. He knew women were stronger. emotionally. I'm being somewhat tongue-in-cheek because of the Christian nationalists. So clearly, because she just traveled independently, she was not a widow. She was in her early 20s. And she eventually went to Ephesus to meet John. See, it makes sense when Jesus on the cross said to John, because again, this is the key here, that her and John, not being related to Jesus, were the only two loyal people. I understand all this stuff the church tells you, yes, all the other apostles were loyal, get it. But these two were special to Jesus. Like, people have argued, well, who was the special apostle, John or Mary? I think both of them. Because the reason they were special is because they believed before Jesus resurrected. They didn't need any more proof. They didn't need him to resurrect, because they didn't know that was going to happen. They didn't need that in order to believe. They already believed, which was absolute loyalty, which is why they couldn't kill Apostle John. Okay? The thing is, what they argued in her gospel, what Peter and James argued is, why are you getting visions from the rabbi or, from Jesus, and we're not? Because of the masculine construct. Seriously, that is really why. That's why I say that identities have to be stripped. Women are used to submitting because men, throughout the history of everything, kept making women submit. So when Jesus came, somebody that was truly an example of natural masculinity, not one that has a stupid, construct around it, that's why he had more women followers. But they could receive him easy because of their life experience under oppression. Okay, so they wanted to submit to him rather than men. So yeah, this is what the Charlie Kirks and the Turning Points and all these fools that just serve, I don't know what they serve. They serve the Catholic Church. They serve the Jews that hate Jesus. Who knows, okay? Who knows? I don't even care, okay? I just know who they are. So, this is why Adam needed a helper, because, he was going to have this problem believing he had masculinity when really he didn't, Charlie Kirk. A bunch of men on the right. Seriously, Donald Trump's the only one that actually has like a natural form of masculinity. Mm-hmm. So, the reason they do this, just understand, the reason they do this, the reason Charlie Kirk did it, the reason Prager, what's his name, PragerU, from PragerU, does it, why they all do it, whether they know it or not, is because they want their kingdom. They don't want God's kingdom. So God has to force it, and he'll use women to do it because women will call them out. Just saying. So, none of the other apostles understood how it is that, because she was explaining to them, no, I after Jesus ascended, because he resurrected and they saw him physically. But then after he ascended, she was the only one that was having visions, other than Apostle Paul, which is why you shouldn't throw Apostle Paul out. You just have to be careful, because the Roman Empire added to some of his writings. And of course they would, because they wanted to keep their hierarchy and their control over everything. And most especially, they did not want to come into equal status with women. So, because none of the apostles understood how she could have a vision in her mind and have a dialogue with Jesus, it's because she did have a closer experience with him. Again, not because they were in love or having a relationship. No, I would imagine these two got married, though. I would bet they did. Because she went to Ephesus. But it's because of her because when you have empathy and you're more sensitive, you're going to be more open to that. Okay? So that's how God uses that negative that man did to women for 7,000 years. He uses it to his advantage. Because now he will use this helper to help the others find the helper, the other helper, the Holy Spirit. You see how it all works together. You see how amazing God is. So because he wrote Revelations and was given a vision of it, she probably trained him, because that's what is speculated, is that she trained some of the other apostles to understand how to have visions.